When I was a young kid, around, 10 I want to say, Cleveland Bryan, the final member of Peter's core friend group that I need to look at, and it's safe to say that I left Cleveland Bryan. He's an interesting case, and that's because Cleveland is probably the Family Guy character who is most different now compared to how they were written in the early seasons. However, unlike a lot of other characters in the show, I don't think people really care in Cleveland's case. It's not like you have fans coming out to claim that his current incarnation is tarnishing how he was originally presented or anything, the way we do with Peter and Brian and Lois and Stewie, and if I were to assume why that is, it'd probably be because Cleveland was never, a fan favorite or anything, at least in comparison to most other secondary characters like Adam West or Herbert. I've sleuthed around a couple Family Guy character rankings, and it is rare that Cleveland is in the top 10s, and more often than not, always ranked at the bottom of all Peter's friends. The most I could find was this ranking posted to r/Family Guy where Cleveland was ranked number 1. For kindness. Aww. Why was that? People not caring about his character, not that he was ranked for kindness. Well, I think it's a result of the other characters being so distinct. How do you describe Joe? He's the hothead in the wheelchair. Quagmire is the sex-addicted ladies' man. Cleveland, he just kinda is like a chill guy. More often than not, the most distinct thing they'd do with his character was pointing out that he is indeed black. Laugh. Now, despite this lack of popularity, Cleveland was given the privilege of his own spin-off series, The Cleveland Show, where he would take center stage after moving out of Quahog. Within this series, the writers attempted to do more to make him an entertaining main character, and I believe in doing so kind of went against the entire point of his character. Like they were afraid of having a main character in a Seth MacFarlane cartoon who isn't so freaking loud and silly. And that's not to mention the introduction of his new family, who now roam the streets of Quahog, unable to say or do anything like zombies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry guys, talking about Cleveland Bryan just gets me so gosh darn passionate. Either way, this is the story of Cleveland Bryan. From the early days to his departure from the show, what it did to his character, and then his return to the show when his spin-off crashed and burned. This is how Family Guy did Cleveland Bryan dirty. Oh yeah, did I mention this video is sponsored by Factor? Because it is. Factor makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep, with a team of gourmet chefs creating meals using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best. These things are ready to eat in just 2 minutes, with you getting to choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, Vegan, and even more. There's also breakfast options, lunch snacks, and beverages. You'd never have to go to the store again, your fridge can be packed. There's even a premium gourmet option where you can get all this fancy stuff like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter. I've never even heard of that, but it sounds good. So why wouldn't you head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code LSMarkFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code LSMarkFB50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year.
Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase.
And thanks Factor75 for sponsoring this video. Now let's be real. In the first couple seasons of Family Guy, I can't really see Cleveland being someone's favorite character. That's not to say those people don't exist, but if I were to get every single human being in a room for the purpose of asking them about Family Guy season 1 to 3, then I think the Cleveland heads would be like filling a corner far off in the distance next to the weird Mort Goldman stands. Sure, he had his moments. Some of the most iconic moments of the series, as a matter of fact. No.
Hey, did you ever have a barbecue? I have.
But most of them more so revolved around how Cleveland reacted to the insanity of the other residents of Spooner Street.
Peter, what's wrong with you? I'm naked.
Oh, God, you're self-conscious. I'm sorry. You know what? Look, Cleveland, look. See? Now you're not alone.
And in terms of that role, he played it perfectly. In a show as wacky as Family Guy, with hundreds of kooky, crazy characters, it's good to have some more relatively normal. In the way that Brian used to be the most rational member of the family, Cleveland used to be the most rational member of Peter's friend group. He's there to, balance it out and stuff. Like I said before, you had Joe and Quagmire, two pretty animated characters, whereas in comparison, Cleveland's whole gimmick was that he just kind of talked slowly. Again, he's just a chill guy.
I got 130. Do I hear 135? 140? Do I hear 140? 135 going what?
Sure, as a result of that, he was more often than not considered the least interesting of Peter's friends. He has the least amount of epic Family Guy funny moments, I'd say. but in my opinion, he didn't really need it. Cleveland may not made you spit chocolate milk out your nose in laughter, but you appreciated what he brought to the table. You would notice if he wasn't there. You know what's funny though, it really wasn't until season 4 where they actually decided to try and do something with the character, coming in the form of the Cleveland Loretta Quagmire. Now Cleveland's wife Loretta was basically a more uninteresting version of Cleveland, but whereas Cleveland made you chuckle, Loretta made you bored to tears. She is a bitch, that is her character. The only times I'd find Loretta funny was when the joke was specifically at her expense. She's permanently killed off with this, by the way. But with that, it made sense that the writers weren't too concerned with writing her out of the show. It's weird to think that this is one of the first major continuity shakeups in Family Guy. Sure, you had stuff like Peter becoming a fisherman briefly, or Brian going to therapy for a bit, but Cleveland and Loretta getting a divorce was a big shakeup for them to commit to. Not because it would drastically change the tone of the series. God, how could it possibly go on without Loretta Brian to offer her witty commentary? But because of their split, I think it really did limit what they could do with him as a character though, at least in regards to what the writers were willing to do with him. Ironically, I think the episode that showed the most of his character was the episode where they split up. They actually lean into the gimmick of him being such a passive person and Peter trying to bring the rage out of him, so he's no longer bottling up his emotions. Shows you a new side to the character, seeing him actually have a backbone. Wanting to kill Quagmire for what he did to their family. It's just too bad they started doing more with him as soon as they lessened his role in the show. You know, Cleveland and Loretta were never the most entertaining couple out there, but every now and then you had a fun gag between the two.
Lois. Bonnie.
Quagmire. Peter.
Loretta.
Now that dynamic, what little of it there was, is gone, and you're solely left with Cleveland on his own. You got Cleveland Jr., I guess, but they seemed even less interested in doing anything with him. They forget he existed half the time. They never seemed interested in doing episodes that solely focused on a problem Cleveland was going through, and they hadn't done enough to establish him as anything more than another one of Peter's friends. So what we're left with is just a guy. A chill guy. I'm very late to this meme. In the 4 seasons of Family Guy, we never saw much of Cleveland's personal life or interests. His dynamic with his wife is now gone, and they forget he has a son aside from a couple episodes. Hell, did you know that Cleveland owned a deli? I think we see it like once. We know relatively nothing about Cleveland, and so all he can really do is assist in whatever the others are going through. What can you do with a character like that? Give him his own show! Why was Cleveland given a spin-off? What compels you to take the least interesting character of the main cast and make a show all about them? And the creators can give whatever reasons they want, but I think we all know that the main thing that contributed to Cleveland being given his own show is that he's the biggest character you could take out of Family Guy, while not really affecting anything. Why would you risk making a show about Joe or Quagmire?
Quagmire, you're a...
Removing them from where they work best, when Cleveland is basically just a big ball of putty. His character and world is so much less defined. Not to mention he's definitely the more normal out of Peter's friends. And so giving him a show could not give them the chance to actually do anything with him. They made Family Guy again. They literally made clones of all the Family Guy characters. Wanted to make their Chris clone, realized that Cleveland already had a son with his own personality, and so just turned him into Chris. Honestly, in retrospect, it's shocking how blatant they were. You know, American Dad, for all the Family Guy clone comments that were made towards it upon release, was at least trying something a little different. Whereas the Cleveland show wore the comparisons on its sleeve. It's a Family Guy spin-off, what do you expect? Not Family Guy? Whoa, you know, maybe we can now focus more on plot lines from an African-American background, the 3 white creators say before realizing they are the 3 white creators. And so the Cleveland show really did just end up being a less funny Family Guy. Had some pretty good episodes in there, but certainly not enough to make the show worth watching in my opinion. Not that that matters in this context, as the important thing to discuss is how the Cleveland show completely changed Cleveland as a character. Never to be the same again. I mean, even just visually, they ever so slightly tweaked his design in a way that's hard to notice at first, but once it's pointed out to you, you can't help but see it. This is Cleveland in the Cleveland show. No, duh, right? This is what he's always looked like. You get the black hair, iconic yellow shirt, blue pants. But that's not what I'm talking about. See, take a look at this. This is how Cleveland looked before the Cleveland show. It's subtle, but I always liked his slightly skinnier legs and more relaxed eyes. He wasn't just a clone of Peter. This isn't exclusive to Cleveland, this happened with pretty much every character from Family Guy, namely Peter and Brian going from soulful to soulless with the most minuscule of changes. But either way, the Cleveland show sees Cleveland realize he needs to get out of Quahog, moving back to his hometown of Virginia to be with his high school crush Donna, and becoming the stepdad to her two kids, Rollo and Roberta, immediately as soon as the episode starts. Despite the first portion of the episode taking place in Quahog with the rest of the Family Guy cast, Cleveland seems immediately different. He's angrier, more willing to put his foot down and speak his mind. He's not as jolly, directly acknowledging that nobody in Family Guy actually cares about what goes on in his life. They had also ditched it a good bit before the Cleveland show, but he's also lost that trait of speaking super slowly and monotone, but I can at least understand why they'd want to do something like that. Despite his newfound attitude, Cleveland still retained a lot of how he acted in Family Guy, although they were now leaning way more into his silliness. A lot of the jokes with him in early Cleveland show are his attempts at being wholesome chungus. Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt the video right here, but I was just looking for random clips from this show and stumbled across a compilation that has this as its fucking intro for some reason. That is all. Anyways, like I was saying, I just don't think anybody really noticed, or cared at least, about these small changes to his character because again, whoever cared about the integrity of Cleveland Brown? I think the main thing that started to change Cleveland as a character came from the general setup of the series. With Cleveland being these kids' new dad, the show has to now spend time setting up their dynamics with one another. Cleveland has known his new kids for as long as the audience has, and so they really need to build up their rapport quickly enough so the show can find its status quo. And really, you have two approaches to take with this kind of setup, and that's either have Cleveland try and become the best, most wholesome dad ever, or have the kids fucking just hate him. They do both and it kinda sucks. So many episodes spent with Cleveland trying his best to win over the most ungrateful asshole kids ever, putting up with so much shit. One of Cleveland's most prominent character traits became how pathetic he was, letting everyone walk all over him, and it's not really fun to watch, it's just kinda sad. And once the show had gone on for long enough to where the characters didn't need to act like this is a new dynamic anymore, they had no need for Cleveland to try and win them over. They had found their status quo. That status quo being, Cleveland is just another Peter Griffin. He became increasingly more stupid, more slovenly. He's a deadbeat, makes poor choices, argues with his wife, is shitty to his kids. He's no longer the straight man reacting to the craziness around him. He's now the one causing the craziness. It begs the question of why you'd want to make a spin-off to a show that's just a clone of said show. I don't know, I didn't make it. The Cleveland show got a solid run of 4 seasons. Sure, it didn't do nearly as well as Seth's other shows, but in the grand scheme of things, for a spin-off, it went on pretty long. And because Family Guy was still airing, there was one logical choice to make here. Just put him back in Family Guy.
Oh, hey, Cleveland.
Hi. Wait, don't you have a show to do? Oh, that's right.
I mean, it makes the most sense. Why bother letting a good character... Why bother letting a character go to waste? Maybe that's going too far, but I don't know, I'm really realizing just how not strong of a character Cleveland is. He definitely worked better as one of Peter's beer buddies than a leading man on his own. This was never meant to be a leading man. It seems like the only way they've attempted to try and make Cleveland more interesting is to not make him like Cleveland. Well, whatever, perfect. He's now back in the role he was best suited for, and he's not alone. He's bringing in old friends, new friends, even a
Yeah, sup. Keep walking, you boondocks ripoff.
I think that is the last time Rollo has ever spoken a line. I mean, really though, it's the perfect way of encapsulating what's to come, because ever since Cleveland has returned to Family Guy, they have not bothered doing anything with any of his family. I mean, you'd think with a show that's gone on for as many episodes as Family Guy, they'd be ecstatic to now have 4 more established characters to work with. Maybe, I don't know, Megan, Roberta, talk about stuff. That's an episode. Family Guy in the past, 12 years since Cleveland returned, have made it clear they have no interest in touching his family at all. And maybe that's just because they're not characters they came up with, so they don't consider it, or find them too similar to other characters, but I don't know, you'll do an episode about Meg becoming a foot model, but you don't want to give Rollo any speaking lines? There's just nothing there? I mean, they are as blatant about their lack of interest in any member of Cleveland's family.
Look, Cleveland. Letitia?
The most we get is Dawn and I becoming another friend for Lois to stand alongside her and Bonnie, or a single episode about Cleveland Jr. Although they quite literally only decided to use him because they could have it focus on his race after Peter accidentally shoots him, which Cleveland thinks was a hate crime. I mean, Roberta hasn't gotten a single speaking role at all in the past 12 seasons of Family Guy. Like, you think there'd be at least one, right? I guess why pay a separate voice actor when you can just use another one of Seth's? So, really, it's like nothing's changed. It's as if he never left. Except, when they brought Cleveland back to Family Guy, he retained the changes in his personality that happened during the Cleveland show's run. He's still just as idiotic and pathetic as he was in the Cleveland show, and so now we're at a point where Peter's friend group is just him, Joe, Quagmire, and a slightly sadder Peter. I don't think there's really anything that Cleveland adds to the show anymore unless they want to take advantage of all the potential that comes with him now working at a post office. Sounds like a rip-roaring good time. And it's weird, it's not like he sucks. It's not like you loathe seeing him on screen. And sure, he still has some fun moments. I don't even mind his new voice actor that much. I know a lot of fans can't stand it. It reminds me of when they changed Charles Martinet as Mario and everyone got in an uproar about how much this new guy can't do the voice. Then you listen to him and it's like,
Let's go. Let's go.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey, Brian. Close that window. You're letting all the stank out.
You got the toll bridge in the way, but 9 times out of 10, the bridge guy's watching TikToks.
if anything, this entire video has just made me appreciate early Cleveland all the more. In a way I never had before. I've been rewatching a lot of early Family Guy lately because, well, I like it. And it really shocked me how much I just never noticed how drastically Cleveland had changed throughout the series. It made me miss you, Cleveland. The old you. And sure, the Cleveland show wasn't the best thing ever, but I miss his family too. There's potential there. Maybe. I'm at least glad to say that Cleveland is one of the better characters in current Family Guy. But when looking at the bigger picture, it's pretty clear he's been done the most dirty. Like he was never really given the chance to shine. At least not without changing what made Cleveland Cleveland. So I'm sorry, Cleveland, for never noticing before.